Good afternoon. My name is Alena Shautsova. I am an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. In today's legal speaking seminar, I would like to tell you about how your employer can help you to become legal in the United States. Many ask me this question, and let me tell you, this is a very broad topic, but let me tell you, like in a nutshell, the main points about employers' sponsorship. So first of all jobs in the United States are qualified into different categories. The first one is the most preferred one, but only a small percentage of people will fall under this category. That category will not need you or will not need an employer to test the market. And under that category, you also may sponsor yourself. But it really suits only a small amount of people. For example, those who are executives of multinational corporations, or those who possess such a great extraordinary ability that they can sponsor themselves into the United States. Then goes a category of professional and skilled workers. For those categories, as a rule, it's not enough just to find an employer. Employer has to test the market and show that employer could not find United States workers or workers already authorized to work in the United States to fill in that position that they would like to sponsor you for. In certain special fields, I would say, in certain fields, a person will be able to apply for what's called a national interest waiver. A national interest waiver meaning that they will be allowed to avoid labor certification. So labor certification is actually, this is the hardest part of the process. And of course, then there is a category of unskilled workers. So all the jobs are divided by the skill and experience necessary for the job and the person's ability to summarize that. So let's say you are a tile guy, right? You do tiles. Can you be sponsored by your employer? Yes, you can. Surprisingly, you don't have to be a prominent physician to be sponsored by your employer. Actually, a tile or construction worker is a very good position to be sponsored because usually they would fall into a category of skilled worker, and you will need to show that you have 3 years of experience prior to being hired by this particular employer. And of course, your employer will have to go through labor certification. What is labor certification? Well, lawyers and I think employers and employees are trying to avoid that. That's a scary thing. What it is a testing of the market to show that there are no other people suitable for this position. And it's funny because even though you're kind of already working for this employer, your employer has to show that it has a different permanent position. It's like artificial creation by law that there is this phantom position that you've been sponsored for, even though you're already working for the employer, right? And the employer has to test the market and prove that it couldn't find anyone else. So the steps for the labor certification, first step would be prevailing wage determination. In the process of the sponsorship, employer cannot just pay you any amount of money. It has to pay amount of money that the government says it must be paid to you according to your skill and area where you're going to be working. This is a prevailing wage determination. Then we're going to move forward towards labor certification itself. Then how do you test the market? Well, you have to advertise for this position. You have to post it on the government website that position is available. You have to make an ad in the newspaper, and you have to put an ad on the radio and post the position on employer's website and the place of work, and you have to keep all the records. And you would say, well, do I really have to keep all the records? What if I don't keep the records? What's going to happen? Well, if the government finds out that you didn't keep the records, when they ask you for that, you're going to be, or employer, going to be in a big trouble. So it's important to keep the records, and it's important to follow the steps if an employer is serious about this sponsorship. Only after the steps are completed, and it takes months, like 6 to 9 months to complete those steps. Only then an employer can file I-140 petition, the actual employment petition for the employer, right? All the steps have to be met. Then, of course, there is an issue of wait time. There is a visa bulletin that tells us when an application for adjustment of status may be filed if I-140 is approved. And sometimes you can file for the green card concurrently with I-140, and sometimes you have to wait more time until your time to file for adjustment of status is current, or for an immigrant visa. Important point about the employment sponsorship: you do not have to be in the United States to be sponsored by your employer. You do not have to hold an H-1B, L-1 or some other visa first to be sponsored by your employer, because many people think it's a pre-qualified. It's not. Some employers, they would want to test you and see if you're worthy to be sponsored, but that's not the qualifier. And the last important point: if you're already in the United States, the employment sponsorship can only help you if you qualify for 245I exception, if you overstayed your visa or entered without proper documents. Also, if you maintained a lawful status, let's say you've been in F or H-1B status from the time you entered the United States and did not violate your status in certain ways. And if, when employer is going to sponsor you, you will be applying for a waiver from lawful presence if you did not maintain legal status and if you did not enter the country illegally. So all this have to be taken into consideration before you're going to dive into this process. It's very important. And you can learn more about employment sponsorship and various visas in the green card process based on employment on our website www.shautsova.com. Thank you.